then we'll wait just a couple of seconds to be able to, let it push it out.
Okay.
So that we're not just talking to an empty
without-
room.
Yeah, and we don't need microphones?
Oh, they're right. They're right here.
Are they already, like, working?
I'm gonna plug it in right
Okay,
now. You gotta let me plug it in, and then you gotta turn it on. So
Okay, sounds good.
give me 2 seconds to.
That would have been funny. I mean, people probably still would have been able to hear, but...
Yeah, they can hear because I've done it without the microphones before.
Just not
Oh, wait.
awesome.
Yeah. I usually put this. There we go. On there. Yep. And now it is on. I'm just gonna stick mine right here.
Okay. Like that?
Yep, just like that. And then
Okay.
here, I'm gonna scoot this way just a little bit, and then
And
just
scoot
there we
this
go.
way?
Because yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So I am here today with Washington CAN. And CAN stands for
Community Action Network.
right. And so we are going to talk about just the beginning of Washington CAN and why it is an entity, what kind of an entity it is,
Cool.
and what you guys are up to right this minute. And for some
Okay.
reason, I'm a little sweaty. I don't know how it happened. Okay, so Rochelle, what is your position at Washington CAN?
Yeah, so I'm the organizing director, and basically what that means is I'm part of the program department. So I organize and direct the various programs that we do with community. So that could be anything from, organizing things like community meetings, events, rallies, protests. But I'm basically the membership or people organizer within the organization.
Okay, and so Washington CAN is what kind of an organization?
Yeah, so Washington CAN is actually really interesting. We are a 501c3 and a 501c4.
So you can be both.
Yeah, well, we have two organizations. So we have the Washington CAN Education and Research Fund, which is our C3, and then we have just Washington CAN or Washington Community Action Network, which is our C4.
Okay, because a lot of the times people don't understand the difference between a 501c3 and a
True.
501c4.
Yeah.
So can you kind of run through that?
Absolutely. So 501c3s are nonpartisan, and what that means is they cannot lobby for a specific candidate or a political party, but they have to work on issues, and they have to work on issues in a way that it's not partisan to one or the other. So we can do stuff related to voter education, advocacy, and informing people of their various choices or what's at stake or when there's an election. But we cannot talk about specific parties or political candidates in a way to tell people this is what you should do in this election or for this, initiative.
Okay, and then the 501c4.
Yeah, so that you can actually endorse elected officials and policymakers. You can use funding to do things that are partisan, that are political, and that, pretty much you have a lot more freedom. So you can spend money lobbying, for example, for policies during the state legislative session. You can go out and canvass at the door for specific candidates in an election. There's just a lot more you can do, and you can be a lot more political and especially partisan with the C4. So yeah, that's kind of, we have both, and the work that they do isn't mutually exclusive, but we have to be very careful how we separate it so we don't get in trouble with reporting.
Right. So if somebody were to only, and we're just going off on a little tangent right here, just a tiny one. If somebody were to only want to have one or the other, what are the perks of having a 501c3 as opposed to just going for the 501c4?
Yeah, so there are actually a lot of perks. There's a lot of perks for both, but I would say the perks for the C3 is a lot more funding is available.
Okay.
You know, folks who fund C4s, for example, usually have political intentions or are looking for partisan political change. Whereas when it comes to C3 funding, that can be something that's just charitable or can be, you know, it can be a lot bigger and a lot easier funded because it is not partisan and it is not political. It is simply about issues, community, and really, you know, creating movements that aren't necessarily partisan. So there is a lot more funding for that. The reporting requirements are a lot different. I would say if folks are just starting out, like having a C3 first is usually the way to go. And then eventually, once you want to become political, thinking about a C4 because of that funding gap. So, you know, for example, for our C4, we fundraise at the door with people, with voters who want to make an impact but don't have the time to donate. So they donate money. Whereas when it comes to the grants we receive, those fund our C3 work. And so, you know, that's an application and a relationship, but not as labor intensive to get. So the mechanisms of funding are different for each one usually. And there's a lot more funding for 501c3 organizations.
Okay. So the beginning of Washington Can, how did that come about?
Yeah, so Washington Can is 40-ish years old, not necessarily 40. We're going to have a 40-ish birthday party this year, for example, in the summer. We started in 78. That was before we had our tax status, so that would make us 42. Technically, not according to IRS standards, but in terms of our like historical lineage, we started as the Tacoma Light Brigade. Okay. And so what the Tacoma Light Brigade did is they stopped utility shutoffs in the winter here in Tacoma. So in 78, we did that, and we were one of the first organizations to have success, first states to have success in ending winter utility shutoffs, especially water, electricity, and those vital things that folks need.
Okay, so basically, it was a group of individuals who said, hey, this is something that should not happen, and then they lobbied for that, or what do you know?
Yeah, so what we did, I know that it was, there was lobbying involved, but there was a lot of door knocking involved. So getting, you know, community leaders together, knocking on people's doors, canvassing them and saying, hey, are you impacted by this? You know, if yes or if no, is this something that you would support? I'm not sure if the final success was through policy like legislative change at the city level, or if it was through a citizens initiative in Tacoma, but I do know that it was passed after a couple years' work. Now, I'm not sure if that was through, you know, figuring that out with the city council at the time, or if that was with citizens getting a petition on the ballot.
Kind of like with the home in Tacoma, which just happened.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And then so it started in Tacoma, which is amazing. Because Tacoma's great.
And just so you know, we had a Tacoma office actually where we had a field canvas in Tacoma, a full-time field office, but with the pandemic, and even before that, you know, organizing has become so digital and so online that you know, eventually subsided and less canvassing has been happening. But after COVID, we're getting more robust, and we do still canvass in Tacoma. We just don't have an office here.
That's awesome. That's great. It has obviously become something way bigger than Tacoma, which it should, right?
Yeah, because everybody deserves.
Right. You're advocating for things like making sure that people are not freezing in their homes and, you know, things like that. And I was about to say exactly what Washington Can advocates for, but I think that is something that you should talk about. So like, but I mean, if you're advocating for things
Yeah.
that are necessary for people, then it definitely should be bigger than a city. So
Right.
do you, around what time, like how did it become something bigger than Tacoma?
Yes. Yeah. So, with our 4 decades of lineage, we've had many changes. So, first, we were the Tacoma Light Brigade. And then after that, we were Washington Citizen Action. And so we were a community-based, grassroots organization that served the purpose to help citizens find a funnel for their voice, to advocate for the changes, and to push for the changes to the conditions, that impact them. And so that started to happen in Pierce and King County, and then ventured a little bit into Snohomish County as well. And this is partly because of the issues that we decided to work on. So, in our history, we were an immigrant justice organization when things were getting, really big in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. And so that really led, over time, that led us to become Washington Community Action. We realized that the folks in our movement weren't just citizens. They were folks who weren't citizens, who were permanent residents, undocumented folks, and that we didn't need to be defined by that. So pretty much every decade, we've brought in new people, new issues, and we've evolved because of bringing those folks in and the advice that they provide us on what we should work on.
So is that what took you guys over the mountain then?
Over to Spokane? Yeah, so Spokane was definitely a place where we had... we worked on a couple things in Spokane. So definitely, wherever we go, we work on healthcare. We really helped with the Affordable Care Act. And so we were involved in the push for the Affordable Care Act statewide because, like you said, just folks in King County, Snohomish, and Pierce County, like, yes, they deserve universal health care and the Affordable Care Act, for example, back then. But so did folks in Spokane. And then we also went over there to work on the immigration issues and some workers' rights issues as well. And then another statewide thing that we worked on was the Fight for 15. So Washington was the first state to make, $15 a minimum wage. We specifically fought for that in Seattle, which was the first city to do it. But then after doing it in Seattle, we wanted to take it to other places. And so based on our issues and the populations impacted, we worked on them, in Western Washington and then some of them in Eastern Washington as well. And I would say, right now we don't have an office in Spokane, but we did. But we do have robust organizing partners in Spokane who are, embedded within communities in Spokane and Yakima. So we still do work over there, but by aiding others in the work that they're already doing with that local presence.
Right. And but a lot of the lobbying that happens, a lot of the talking to legislators needs to happen on this side of the mountain. So those people that live on the other side of the mountain, do you guys organize something to bring them to Olympia? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so, it really depends. We've had a couple things happen. So 2 years ago, so just to back up a little bit, one of the things that Washington Can does and has historically done really well and just, we love it. We love doing it. And so do our members, is hosting really big lobby days where we go and we advocate for housing, healthcare, democracy reform, economic justice, and an end to mass incarceration. So when we have those lobby days, we absolutely call through our membership and folks who RSVP from places that are far away, regardless of if it's Spokane or the Tri-Cities. Oh. There goes me being a mess. One sec. Okay. Cup fell. But yeah, so, regardless of how they're situated, based on wherever they're located, if they're far away, we reach out to them and we provide transportation and we provide accommodation so that way they can join us and come to Olympia and show up in person. But there are those times where weather is bad because, in a short session, our legislative session has short and long sessions. Right. And in a short one, the bill cutoff date or the date that your bills or policies are going to die, it's in the winter time when it's snowing.
and you can't get over them passes sometimes. Right.
Yeah, so that's what we ran into this year. We had a couple members from the Tri-Cities, from Vancouver, Washington, and from Spokane that couldn't make it because we did our lobby day when there was that supposed storm happening. But then the storm was really weak, except in the mountains and except in the Tri-Cities. So it didn't impact us here. But what that meant is that we switched those folks to virtual. We allowed for them to join via Zoom where possible. Some folks, they did not have the technology capacity to make that happen.
Right.
Like, they just don't know how to use Zoom, and we're not close enough to them to provide those in-person trainings. But for the folks who understood Zoom, or at least could call into that Zoom number, we hosted a virtual lobby day meeting with their electeds.
Which is something that is kind of new, right?
Definitely.
And so if you think about it, in the past, since Washington Can is sort of 40, then
Right.
those individuals, even if they wanted to be a part of something, would have just not had an avenue, wouldn't
Yes.
have had any way, shape, or form to do anything. And what we locally in certain places now that, and I'm going to take just a little trail over here for a second, but locally what we're running into is that now that COVID is over, then people are like, well, we're back. We don't need hybrid. We just
True.
need full, full in person. But I mean, this right here is a really good example as to why we should always have hybrid. We should have had hybrid just from the get. They shouldn't have taken a pandemic to like force certain things to happen for just politics all around, right? So it's really great that Washington Can works with people to be able to do that, because the access is the actual problem, right? And they talk about access all the time when it comes to they have access to this thing right here, and they are the people who are like overall in charge of things, right?
Yeah.
They don't use it as a verb though. They don't use it as an action word, right?
Yeah.
They use it as, well, it's there. You can access it, but it's accessible, right?
But if you don't know how to use those tools, it's not.
Right, exactly. And so that's what like brings me to talking about one of the things that Washington Can works really hard on, and that's universal health care.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Access is always a word used within healthcare, but working in the field of trying to get better healthcare, then you definitely know that there are a lot of things that are just not accessible to just a huge amount of the population. So
absolutely.
Can we
talk about universal? Absolutely. So, universal healthcare has been Washington Can's leading issue, I would say, for the last at least 2 decades, maybe even 2.5 to 3. No matter where we go, who we talk to, we find many problems. But one of the consistent problems that every community, regardless of income, regardless of race, regardless of location, experiences is crappy, inaccessible, expensive healthcare. So, healthcare has been commodified and monetized in our country.
Yes.
And in our state. And, people will say, oh, there's not-for-profit hospitals like Kaiser or whatever. But that doesn't mean that they're not profiting. They're just finding ways to use that profit to look like they're offering things to consumers. But really, they're still profiting in other ways. And that money helps to accommodate them to profit in those other ways. So that's all to say, just that, we've been working on universal healthcare and access to healthcare for a long time. And I'll just say that when it comes to the movement, our place in the movement for affordable, accessible, comprehensive healthcare is to be the patient's voice. So we center our members in everything we do, but within our membership and our work on universal healthcare, or, a single payer system that is a publicly funded healthcare system where everyone has access regardless of anything. You need healthcare, you get it. We really try to make sure that we're bringing patients forward. So anytime you see Washington Can advocating for a healthcare bill, it's because we have people who we know are impacted by the healthcare system. And we try to be the people who open the door and bring in those patients. Because too often with healthcare, we see a lot of experts, a lot of attorneys, a lot of folks who just don't have that experience as a patient. So we really try to center patients in the movement. And one of the biggest recent, you could kind of call it recent wins, is the Affordable Care Act. But it's been a really long time, and we're due for another huge win, and it should be way more transformative than that one was.
Right. Because there was just a huge shift that impacted a lot of people when it comes to Apple Health, right? Which Apple Health is the Medicaid system within Washington, where Molina and Kaiser just kind of cut their ties.
Yes.
And no patients knew. I was using Kaiser and I didn't know. And I'm diabetic and I needed my insulin, and I just went in to get my insulin and they were like, oh yeah, no, we're not giving this to you. And you need to find another doctor. And that causes so much stress within individuals who are dependent upon the medications that they get. And not knowing, right? Not knowing is just a huge thing. I mean, there's a lot of us that if we would have been told, say, the last time that I came to pick up my medication,
hey, we're
about to do this thing here, then I would have been like, cool, let me help, let me run and find a new doctor and, do all the things or whatever. But now you're forcing me to do this while I am under duress because I only have a couple of more days of
with
insulin.
The medication. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I fully ran out, and then I had to go, you always have to take these other avenues to be able to. And
if you don't, you get a giant bill in the mail that can send you into debt. And even medical bankruptcy. Right.
So, I mean, everybody wants to, be like, oh, Obamacare is the greatest thing, all of these things. I'm not trying to say that it wasn't a helpful thing, but there's still so many
uninsured, underinsured.
Right. Or if you are insured, then you have to navigate this system in a way. I mean, and think about the people who are just incapable of navigating the system, and they don't have a caredever. What's going to happen with those people? They're going to fall in the cracks. And I mean, it's not, healthcare is a life or death situation,
right?
And I mean, I laugh because
it should be obvious.
It's just totally obvious, and it's ridiculous that we have to say this. So
I can definitely too speak to one example of a patient testimony recently that we've heard that is just so impactful, if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah,
so in this most recent legislative session, we were working on the Keep Our Care Act, and that bill is a healthcare bill that looked to regulate the mergers and acquisitions of hospitals. So, right now, say that T-Mobile and AT&T are going to merge, it's heavily regulated by the government because of the access and the cost that those types of mergers can cause. When it comes to our healthcare, it's not regulated hardly at all. So any hospital can gobble up another, or several small ones, or two huge hospital systems can completely merge. And what that does is that lowers the amount of care provided and the access people have, and it raises the prices. So one clear example of that, Washington Can had a member, her name is Katie Perez. She testified on the bill. She receives infusions for her chronic issue. Those infusions went up over $50,000.
That's wild.
She used to get them at a facility where it was in clinic, and it was a clinical visit, and it was coded in one way. And then when that merged with another healthcare entity, it then became a hospital visit with a facility charge because it had a new location. And so not only the medication, the infusion itself, she saw a cost of $63,000 because of the fact that she had to now go get those infusions in a hospital, and it was coded differently. Same infusion, same everything. And she's on Apple Health. So what does that do? That gouges taxpayers. It's irresponsible. It needs to be regulated. Like, no matter who pays for it, someone pays for it, and the only one who benefits are those large hospital and insurance systems.
Right. And also, like, when hospitals merge together, then for instance, if you're going to one of the hospitals that does not have any type of religious understandings, right? Religious belief systems, and it merges with another hospital that does have religious belief systems, then it can actually impact your
ability to get care.
Well, yeah, your ability to get care, but I mean, just life or death, again, situations, because I know somebody who had to go to the hospital because under her insurance, she had to go to the hospital that does have those, religious mindsets. And she had a miscarriage.
Yep.
And the miscarriage wasn't a full miscarriage, right? She needed to have a DNC.
Yeah.
But because miscarriages are seen as abortions, they're still spontaneous, but they're still abortions, right?
Right.
Then she could not get what she needed under her own insurance.
Yeah.
And you can become septic and die behind that type of stuff, and it's has nothing to do with you. You're not the one who sought this out. This happened to your body.
Yeah.
And not only are you going through the stress and the strain of just dealing with that, the trauma from dealing with that, but now you have to go through the trauma of dealing with the whole system that is not set up for you. It's set up for some
ideology.
Right? I was about to say pie in the sky, but I didn't want to say that. But yes, exactly. And so making sure that we understand these things that happen because people run their everyday lives and they're just like, look, I don't have time for this. I got to pay my car note. I got to do these things.
Don't realize it's impacting you unless you're directly impacted or unless you're looking. But as a taxpayer, it's impacting all of us.
Right.
And so it's like everyone should care about this, especially this issue, because it is so expensive, and it's not because it's amazing. It's, that's not what we're buying with all of our taxpayer dollars going into this. But a scary statistic right now, 80% of hospital beds are owned by religious hospitals in Washington state.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that means that there are very few options, especially more so in rural communities. And so another thing we see is like when hospitals merge, just to give one more example of why this should be regulated, because the bill will come back next year. Yay. So when hospitals merge, if there's, say, a pregnancy, a women's facility, or an OBGYN, who knows, but some specific sort of doctor or clinician or clinic, and it merges with another hospital, and they have one that's like, 45 minutes away, they can close the one and use the fact that the other one 45 minutes away exists as an excuse to say, oh, we're already offering this. What that does is doesn't give a crap about people who take the bus. People who cannot, just drive 45 minutes, don't have access to the transportation. So it's so important to make sure people are watching what's happening with these large hospitals, because it's really impactful, even if we don't recognize it.
Right. So what Washington Can did with this bill, then go ahead and walk us through how you guys lobbied for this bill.
Yes, yeah. So, the Keep Our Care Act was introduced more than 4 years ago. there is a coalition working on it. So we work in coalition with the ACLU, with Pro-Choice Washington, and with a few other organizations. But when it comes to our work, that is, all ours, and it's within our membership and our own folks within the organization. So, what we did is the way that we take on a policy is we bring it to our members. We have a meeting. We ask our members how they feel about it. And then we get a recommendation from them, which is taken to our board. Our board then agrees with the recommendation or shuts it down. Usually our board agrees with our members' recommendations because our members are on our board. So that makes it not the same members, but everything's very member driven. So after that happens, that's when we get involved. So with the Keep Our Care Act, we were on a coalition, which meant we were, strategizing. We have a lobbyist at Washington Can, Waldo Waldron Ramsey. So he was strategizing with the other organizational lobbyists on, what can we do to get this bill through? So after they come up with their strategy, we then think about how can we bring our members into this strategy and hand the power over to them to get this done and to be heard. So with that, even before the legislative session starts, we're at the door, knocking on doors, collecting stories from people who want more conscious regulation and, oversight over those mergers. So we're knocking on doors every day, getting people to write letters to their legislators, expressing why they care about this bill, why they support it, and what it means for them. If folks have personal stories, we bring them in and we try to help them decide if they want to be heard in the legislative session by their elected officials. So we'll find people who are looking to be heard as patients, as people who receive care, to go and to testify, to talk about these bills with their legislators on TVW, which is like the legislative TV channel. Mm-hmm. But more than that, we bring 85 to 100, sometimes up to 150, I know you came, members to our lobby day. So, for example, this year we brought members from 25 different legislative districts. We met with over 50 individuals in that one day, and we, lobbied and shared our stories and our member stories one-on-one in meetings with every legislator that we were able to have a member come to talk to. And then with that, we continue to call them, to email them, to write them letters. We basically annoy the crap out of them trying to get it over the finish line. And then we also post our members' testimonies to our social media, send them to legislators, because even if the bill doesn't pass, we still want patients to be heard. Mm-hmm. And so we continue to push that forward up until the session's over, and then work to gain more support until the next session.
Right. So talking about Lobby Day, then we did have the Keep Our Care Act bill that we were talking about, but there were a couple of other bills that were brought up. Would you like to talk to us about those?
Absolutely. So, like I said, we work on housing, democracy reform, economic justice, healthcare, and mass incarceration. When we work on mass incarceration, we say mass liberation because we want to liberate people, not incarcerate them. And so, this year we targeted 3 bills. So we had 3 bills. One was the Keep Our Care Act. The other was House Bill 1189. That was the Clemency and Pardons Board reform bill. So that bill is a bill that intends to make the Washington State Clemency and Pardons Board out of the governor's office more racially equitable. So, and to add community voices to the board. So the way that board works, it has 5 board members. They hold, hearings, and they hear cases, and they recommend if people should be granted clemency or a commutation of their crime, because we don't have parole in our state. Like, surprising, but only people who are juveniles or sentenced before 1984 or commit a specific type of crime are able to be paroled. So we want the clemency system to be one that's robust, that's informed by community, and that includes community members on the board, because your community, your peers, a juror, jurors, 12 jurors, send you away. So it should be on the community to bring you back as well. And so that bill looked to add 5 community members to the board, to give them 4 support staff, because they're over 100 petitions behind. and to make it so that they would use a racial equity lens when evaluating the cases to say, was race in this case a determining factor that got someone a longer sentence?
Yes.
So that was one of the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other bill was a consumer protection bill. So right now, in Washington State, if you don't use a gift card, your gift card is siphoned back as deferred revenue into that company once you don't use it after a 3-year period. You can still go to the company and try to get it back, but if you don't, they siphon it and they collect it as deferred revenue. So Starbucks is collecting $250 million, per year in deferred revenue by claiming back those gift cards. And so in most states, that revenue is deferred to the state. So it goes into, transportation, education.
Yeah.
Things that communities need. And so the bill attempted to shift that deferred revenue from companies to the state, as well as to make it so that people could exchange gift cards up to $50. Because I don't know about you, but when I go in and I have a $7 gift card, I'd way rather have $7 than have to come back and spend, $13 to use that $7.
Right. And also, like, you end up accumulating a stack of gift cards that you have like $1.50 on,
like,
or
yay,
33
23 cents.
Yeah, exactly.
What am I going to get with this?
And when it's your stack, then it adds up to like $25 or something like that. That's something really important to you as an individual out here. For the money to go straight back to the company itself, that company it doesn't need that money. So exactly.
Yeah.
To be able to like pull the money off. It's our money. We put it on.
Let's spend it on what we want.
Right, exactly.
But, the main thing to know about all of these wonderful bills is that we have a Democratic trifecta in our state, is what they like to call it. We have a Democratic governor, a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate. And we still can't get any of these things that we need done. We've been working on some of this stuff for 4, for 8, for 10. We've been working on healthcare for 30 years. And the weak, moderate Democrats who are in leadership positions still don't have the courage to pass forward the reforms that Washingtonians need. And so that's all to say that the legislature is a part of what we do, but what we do that we really excel at is local initiative work, because that involves voters instead of those weak, moderate Democrats.
Right. Well, we all know what Martin Luther King said about moderate Democrats. We'll go ahead and just say that. The moderate Democrat. How about that? And it is definitely true, know, that they're the ones that are actually in the way, because if somebody comes to you and basically says, no, you can work with that, actually. Like, you can work with that, actually. When somebody comes to you and, but this and that and this, and, and then raises the bar each and every time. And then there's no way to get around that, because,
to be real, like, we should have bipartisan support on everything. And we do have it on some things. But for example, things like universal health care, it's really hard to think that there will be enough bipartisan support, because we can't even get those moderate Democrats to support it.
Yeah, but the thing about universal health care is that it is it's not the people who are against it, because the people there is bipartisan support. It's like 70% of the population. We're not talking about 70% of Democrats. We're talking about
everybody.
We're talking about Democrats, independents, Republicans. 70% of the population is for universal health care.
It should be a bipartisan issue. It really should.
And the legislators, the people in charge, the politicians are always using, this is what the people want as an excuse when they're trying to push something that you're telling them is not okay, right? Like, I'm just gonna...
A camping ban. Who knows?
Like, for instance, Steve Kirby, when we talked to him about something that he did, I think we were back in 1980, when it came to LGBTQ rights. He said, well, the people in the 29th district did not want me to, say yes for this LGBTQ thing because it was the people that decided. It really wasn't me. I was just doing what the people wanted.
Well, who are the people, buddy?
Right. But then you come up here and you say, hey, so 70% of the people want this. So what's going on? Yeah. And, there's always speculation. We can go on for days. There were
17 lobbyists that opposed the Keep Our Care Act, as an example. 17 highly paid lobbyists.
Highly paid.
Dare to say no.
Yeah.
And so we know, but we'll come back stronger.
Right. But I'm just saying, there's always this speculation because, people are like, well, they don't want to pass it because of this, or they don't want to. No. I heard that they didn't want to do anything with universal health care because Inslee had his own bill or his own thing. There's always this
excuse.
Yeah, excuses.
Yes.
All over the place. But at the end of the day, no, the people don't care about the excuses. What we care about is the change, is the action, right? Your mouth can say anything.
Yeah.
But we want to watch you do the work that we need from you. And the only real way that we're going to get our voices heard is if we make our voices heard.
Right.
Instead of just sitting in a room full of people and being like, this is crap. I don't like this thing here. Sit in front of your legislator and say, this is crap. I don't like this thing here, and it is that easy. It really is that easy. Definitely. It's not, the work that you do is definitely not ezy, because humans are kind of like herding cats a lot of the time. And
busy cats.
Busy cats. And it's really not an easy thing to get people to decide to say, yes, I will come and be here at this time and on this date and talk to these people about this specific thing. So to get 150 people to come on a lobby day is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Right.
And fun.
It's
super fun and fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It definitely is fun. So I would encourage anybody to come to any lobby day, not just one that Washington can or the typical ones, right? That are on specific.
Just go yourself.
Right.
Take a group of friends, figure out who your legislators are, but preset the meetings ahead of time because security is tight now.
But that's really easy too, because all you have to do is just email them and they have to respond. They can't just ignore you. They have to respond.
Or you could call. You can call too.
Yeah, you can call too. But just, set up a time and take that 15 minutes to tell them exactly what it is that you're worried about or the things that are important to you. Yeah. Because they have to listen to you, especially if you have 5 people, right? That's 5 people is a really good number. It's an easy number, you know. And I'm not trying to say that everybody has family and all that other stuff, but you could take you could take your sister, you could take your brother, you could take your best friend, you could take your mom. That's 5 people right there. Yep. And they actually, the 5 people is what really actually sets things off, right? Because
definitely.
They have to listen. They have to see, they have to respond to whatever it is that you're talking to them about. So being a member of Washington Can would amplify your voice.
Because it links you with all of our other members.
With all the other members, right? So that is a really easy way to be able to make your voice heard. You don't have to even go out and find the 5 people. Yeah. Washington Can has the 5 people for you,
Absolutely.
And that's a huge
strength in numbers.
Right. And it's a huge reason why Washington Can should be here, why it should be an entity, and why it is such a strong community resource. Right. Because
absolutely.
It's just what it's made of. Is community, and it talks about the issues that Washington Can brings people together for are some of the most important issues
that normal people face.
Right. Yeah. And that's why it was so important to me to make sure that Washington Can's voice was heard, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Well,
mean-
I appreciate you.
Thanks. But so because literally I saw I don't know how many years ago now, but it was more than 5, I think. I definitely was just scrolling through my Facebook, and I'm a person who sees a lot of activism type things on Facebook. Not a lot of people do, you know. But I saw a meeting that had to do with the Community Review Board.
Yes.
And Lori Jenkins, who is the Speaker of the House in Washington State. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to go to that. I'm going to.
Right.
And that is the only reason that I understood that Washington Can existed. And it's really helpful to do like word of mouth type of things.
Definitely.
You know, to be like, hey, this thing exists. Did you know this?
Yeah,
You know?
because a lot of people don't. How are you going to find it?
Right. And even when you have the ability to just advertise and whatever, I don't look at things like that.
No.
Like ads,
We're busy.
my brain just kind of shuts down when it comes to an ad, you know.
I forget when the TV goes on like a commercial, people will be like, hey, did you like that commercial? And I like shut it down. I don't even remember that it happened. So I feel you.
Exactly.
Like,
right.
yeah.
But like when it's somebody that you know and they say, hey, did you know about this thing right here? Because, you know, let's link into this thing right here.
Yep.
And it is fun. It is really fun. And it's not like something that's extremely intimidating. Nobody's going to send you in all by yourself. You're always going to go in to talk to somebody with at least one other partner.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're going to get training.
Yeah. You're going to get training to be able to go in and talk about the things that
you care about.
Right. That you care about that are important. So we've talked about where Washington Can came from.
Yep.
And we've talked about the
C4 work.
Right. And
which is basically everything we just described, because that would all be within the C4, for example.
Right. Oh, and also when those lobby days happen, I just want to reiterate that, yes, you are given accommodations, and yes, you're helped. It's not like, get here if you can.
No, it's like, how can we pick you up if you're, further than an hour and a half away? Do you want a hotel halfway between? It's like, what barriers need to be broken down? We provide childcare those days, and we provide food.
Food, yes, because if you feed them, they will come.
Yes, yeah. Who wants to go to an event and be hungry and waste their money on a bunch of food?
Right, exactly. When I was a Head Start literacy specialist, we used to do these workshops, and that was our main focus, was to make sure that
the barriers.
Barriers, but like the main focus was to make sure that there was always dinner. Right,
Yep.
There's always dinner, because you're already stressed out. You're already doing things all day long. You're already dealing with whatever you should not have to deal with, figuring out how to feed yourself. Right. So, and when you provide dinner, then I don't know about y'all, but I'm going to eat it. I'm going to come and I'm going to eat. So, and lunch is usually at lobby day. Right. But and it's good lunch. This last time it was Panera Bread.
Yeah.
Right? So like
we try to make sure it's good.
Yeah, it's I don't think that I've ever came and it was just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Right.
So
yeah.
Like you're gonna be able to have your voice heard. You're going to be able to have your belly full. You're going to be able to network with other people.
So important. Yeah.
So important. So important, because that's a huge part of getting things done.
Yeah.
Is making sure that you're connected with the right people, and
and just your community members, because great people, average people, everybody is doing great things, but we just don't connect and talk about it. We're so isolated. We're so in our house with our family, with our friends, but having those community, random people centered events allows you to oftentimes connect with people you never knew that are doing, incredible things. So that's what I like about it. I get to learn about all of these things that are happening that people are doing to make our communities better, more vibrant, and really thrive. And without those shared spaces, I wouldn't have the opportunity to meet or learn those people.
Right.
And things.
And that's a huge part of it too, is that there's so many people that you meet that you would have never, that you would have never known. And it's really important to do that out in community, just like she just said, that it's an extremely important thing to take a step outside of your bubble, because a lot of the times people just want to stay within their little bubble. And even like on social media, you know,
you get what you see. Yeah, it just feeds you what you want.
Right, exactly. So like you just deal with what it is that you feel comfortable with. And a lot of the times, I'm not even going to say a lot of times, every single time, the only growth that happens is outside of your comfort zone. Right?
Yeah,
it's outside of your little bubble. And you learn so many different things about how other people even just live in life, right? So we're talking about how important it is to make sure that you're a part of, and it doesn't have to be Washington Can.
Just something,
right? But let's talk about how you become a member of Washington Can.
Yes, yeah. So Washington Can's really unique. Like I said, you know, part of the work that we do is we go to the door and we work on local initiatives. So just as some examples, right now we're working on raising the wage in Burien, and we're working on making Kent more representative, and we're working on getting social housing done for Seattle. So within those campaigns, to become a member, all you have to do is answer the organizer who knocks on your door and tell us, I support one of those things and I want to be a member. So that's one way. We bring members in at the door. So if we show up, if you hear a random knock on your door and you see a friendly person with a clipboard, open it.
The Washington Can shirt?
So they don't wear shirts every day because, you know, red every day gets a little too overbearing for folks. And it's a little too cold most of the time, but sometimes a shirt. But yeah, so pretty much we do two things at the door. We bring in affirmation members. Those are members that support the work that we're doing, just, you know, in spirit and mind, and agree with the things that we're pushing for. And we fundraise for the lobbying work that we just talked about. So some folks, they really want to contribute, but they're busy and they can contribute, you know, monetarily. They can donate, but they don't have the time. So anyone who contributes $20 or more to the work we're doing, they become a member as well. So those are our dues paying members, kind of like, you know, unions in ways do. But the third way, the last way to become a member is to show up to an event or to take an action with us. So, you know, one of those actions could be subscribing to the newsletter on our website. One of them could be going and following our Facebook and just sending us a message and saying, hey, I just followed your Facebook. You know, I'd love to be a Washington Can member. We hold community meetings. You know, we're having a fundraiser in July where we're going to hold board elections later in November. So any of those events or community picnics that we do, any of those things, folks who attend them, those folks are added to our membership as well as they consent as well. So 3 main ways to become a member. You can take an action as small as subscribing to the newsletter, as big as showing up for the lobby day, the fundraiser, or the leadership retreat. Or you can answer the door when a field organizer knocks and either say you're with us and you want to be a member when asked, or you can donate $20 or more. We have 44,000 members statewide right now.
That's a lot.
And we are really, you know, continuing. I would say every year we knock on at least 30,000 doors. And so we bring in about 20% of those people or so, maybe 15%.
Okay, so you have a website, which is
WashingtonCan.org.
Okay, so that's Washington.
Yep.
The word Washington, CAN.org.
Correct.
And then you have a Facebook.
Yep.
Which just
Washington Can. Yep.
Do you have any other social media like Instagram, Twitter?
We've got Instagram, we've got Twitter, and we've got LinkedIn. I would say we're mainly active on Instagram and Facebook, but we are also decently active on Twitter or X, whatever.
Does anybody actually call it X?
No,
Because
right? No,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I
Definitely
always
not.
try to correct myself, and then everyone's like, "Whatever, it's
Yeah,
Twitter."
it's wild. And then like when you get things, like when you get your emails or something, it's just total off topic, but when you get your emails and stuff, it says X, formerly Twitter.
Yeah.
And
So
you're
what's the point?
but then they still call them tweets.
Yep.
You're
Who knows?
Still called. There's when you share, they're still called tweets. So like, I'm never gonna call it X. I just never in life. Like,
I'll
that's
stop
wild.
apologizing for calling it Twitter then.
Right. That we need to. That's what we need a campaign to bring Twitter back.
Yeah,
That's one of the biggest things that we're worried about right now.
No.
Like, no, I'm literally just joking. I hope everybody understands that. So I think that we've definitely walked through everything that we needed to make sure that people understood. Is there anything that you are like, oh, let's go ahead? And it does, I mean, it can be anything. It doesn't have to like, is there anything that you would like people to understand about Washington Can, or about your position, or about positions that other people do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're based in Seattle. We canvass basically in King County, Pierce County, and a little bit in Snohomish. We're consistently hiring field organizers, like folks to do this work. And so for folks who are, close to Seattle, anyone who is like, wow, this would be a great summer gig. This would be, something that I would want to do during election time, or this is something I would want to do full time. Check out our website, email our staff. If you want to get involved and get paid to knock on people's doors and talk about these issues, we have a field team, and we are oftentimes usually hiring. Additionally, that is our bread and butter, you could say, is knocking on doors and talking to people. We have learned over the years that texting people and phone calling them just isn't the same as showing up in person and having that one-on-one conversation. And so everything that we do is with that in mind. Our main goal is to approach people in person at their own door where they're at and talk to them about the issues that they care about. And so just knowing that, we're not just doing this because we all care about it. We're doing this to build power and get things done. Like we are leading citizen initiatives. We are getting things on the ballot. We are changing the conditions that we live under. But to be able to do that, it takes a huge movement of people who are willing to work together within their similarities and across their differences. And so we really welcome everyone to get involved, because, it's up to us what happens in our system. And even if it's hard and we can't always win, for me, it's like a soul sin not to try. And so it's just so important to do this and to show up, even if you only have an hour here or there. You can make a huge difference in changing the conditions that we live under that are limiting people in our communities. And so just know this work isn't just volunteer either. Like, this is something that people can start as volunteers and then develop entire careers in, and make, organizing and building power and movement building their literal career. And so just, that I'm so thankful to work for Washington Can, to be a member of Washington Can, and that we really are building power in this state. And so it would be great if everybody would join us, because we do have strength in numbers.
Right. And what's great about working on an issues level when it comes to things is it you can definitely have a whole other thought process about life when it comes to the rest of life than somebody, but you guys can, just like the universal healthcare thing, right? Like, a Republican can definitely feel like somebody else's life is the total opposite of what they believe in. Right. But this person here and this person here both believe in universal healthcare. You don't have to talk about anything else. You don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to deal with anything. You don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. But when you bring yourselves together and as one voice when it comes to this one main specific issue,
You can get a lot done.
you can get a lot done. And that's what we know, but that's what they don't want us to know.
They don't. That's for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's why they'll deflect a lot.
Yeah.
And they'll try to talk about something that will make sure that we're divided upon something.
Definitely.
So we have to be smarter than that. We're
Right.
smarter, not harder. You know, we have to be smarter than that. And we just have to say to ourselves, yeah, this person over here, I would never do anything that this person does, but they are the same when it comes to this thing right here. And
We can both agree
We
that
can both
people
agree on
deserve
this.
to go to the hospital, to be taken care of when they're sick, and everything else that we don't agree on is fine. We can agree to disagree, but we should work together where we can.
right.
Yeah.
And that's the number one important thing, is to make sure that just like Rochelle said, strength in numbers.
Yeah.
Find the things that you agree on with each other and go after that, because it the only thing that it can do is enrich our lives,
Yeah.
all of us.
And amplify our voices. And you know, that's what we don't know. What's that sweet spot where we actually get our legislators to do something? We don't know yet. So we need to keep building the movement until we can really, truly hold them accountable and get the things done that we need for our communities. And yeah, the only other thing I would say is it's really important for me that Washington Can, as an organization, all of us who are staff, we are impacted. We have lived experience in the issues we work on. So we have a really nuanced and deep understanding of what it feels like, at least to a degree, to go through those issues that we work on. And I think that's part of what makes it a strong movement, is the fact that it's not advised by, you know, folks with big degrees who have studied all the things. It's people with real lived experience, understanding what they struggled with, what the answer could have been, what would have helped them that they didn't have access to. And that's how we center and do our work. And so you don't need a degree. You don't need a big, you just need to come in and share about your experience that you've been through. And that's really about it, which is something that makes it really special to me as someone who didn't know where I could fit or be heard or belong.
Right. So with that, we will go ahead and end this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Talking about things. And I hope that this has been helpful for any of you out there, especially you Washingtonians who are watching. Go to the website, go to the Facebook, get connected. Let's do some great things.
And don't forget to register to vote, because this November, we've got a big election coming up that will continue to define some of those conditions that control our lives.
Right. Okay. We're done. Bye.
Bye.